Can you guys just like chill at home? Like, I don't know.
Comment on the video if you're a bio major and let us know how online classes work for you. If you're a biomechanical engineering major, I know there's at least one at the university.
There's at least one.
There's at least one. I know one. How are you supposed to lick the rock on online classes? That's an essential part of identifying if it's a sedimentary rock.
Are you tasting like the salts and minerals in it and stuff? Is that a thing that people like actually do?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
I have not privy to this information.
Former earth science major for one whole semester. Welcome back to Bleat This. I'm your host, Hickey.
And my name is Connor Lydon. I'm subbing in for Guilday.
Our special guest for today. Today we are going to be discussing the pros and the cons for online classes versus in-person classes. I'm an online class hater, so I will be arguing in favor of having in-person classes.
I don't know that I'm arguing in favor of online classes, but I'll definitely be playing the other side of the coin for sure.
Half the fun's the argument. All right.
I'll play a good devil's advocate. Let's say that.
That's good. So I am notably unable to complete online classes. I have only successfully had one because I get so distracted and it's not real to me.
No, let me ask you this as a bit of a preliminary question, right? So you would have graduated high school in 21.
21 was my graduation year.
I graduated in 22. So fair to say that we both went through a fair share of like online / COVID-based school.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you've already kind of spoken to like how your college online class experience has gone to. Can you speak to at all how your high school online
so we went online and it was completely asynchronous. The school had nothing, like nothing set up in place. So it was a trash fire. And the only thing that stopped me from failing was that I had gotten A+ in the first half of the semester, notably in chemistry. I had gotten an A+ in the first half of the semester, and then we went online and I couldn't teach myself chemistry. And I got a D, and my mom flipped out on me, but it leveled out and I passed.
It's so funny to me that you were good at chemistry.
Yeah.
I was abysmal at chemistry.
Former STEM
I was
major.
so bad at chemistry.
That's why we're media majors.
Gotta land somewhere. Gotta meet in the middle.
That didn't happen. I dropped my STEM major because of chemistry. It was too much. I didn't want to do it anymore.
Okay, interesting.
And when I was like, I need to drop a major, I'm too busy, this is awful, I decided I'll drop the one with chemistry so I don't have to do chemistry.
Let me clarify. I love being a media major, and I love everything involved in it. However, I always find it interesting talking, because you hear those people that are like, oh, you were good at chemistry, bad at chemistry, good at bio, bad at, there's always, you can't have both.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we are on the opposite side of the coin already on something else that's unrelated. So that's interesting to me. But I have to just agree right up. Also, my school had no sort of infrastructure. It was sort of just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. And so, okay, it seems like there was a pretty good lineup of just our schools didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. March 12th, 2020 is when my school got the news about the shutdown. I don't know if it was different in New Jersey. But the funniest thing is that morning my TV teacher had said within the next 2 weeks they're going to quarantine and shut down the schools. And then later that day they did.
And just
yeah, and now
wow.
he quit his job and he danced on TikTok for his new job. So
that is a crazy pipeline.
Yeah, he told us he would never leave that job because of the stability of teaching, and then he quit and was dancing on TikTok.
He got lucky. The opportunity presented itself. I just think it's funny that his rationale was,
oh, he got lucky.
His rationale was, teaching, you'll always need teachers, there's always going to be safe. And then he went to probably the least secure job market.
I'm totally oversimplifying it.
Ever.
The Fox in Philadelphia ran a promotion where teachers would send in a video audition essentially, and then whoever won that would host a classroom on Fox, and he won that. So he was dancing on TikTok for the classroom.
Got it. Okay.
If you look back I don't know, 7 years now, you can find me in the audience. Like that second semester, half of the semester where we got dropped into online classes, there was no structure. There was definitely more structure. That was like the end of my junior year. Started my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
They had like figured it out.
Totally.
And it was synchronous, no longer asynchronous, which is what really killed me. And it partially went so well because every morning I'd wake up, I'd check in, and my friend who was doing the 2 of the 4 classes I was also doing would pick me up from my house, drive me to his house, and we'd have class at his house with him and his siblings.
Yeah.
Because he was one of 3, and me. And that was the only reason I think I passed, is because I made it as in person as I could.
No, yeah, I definitely did that a couple times with a friend of mine, and I tried to do it with my sister, but she quickly became one of those people who, like, would take your, like, you know, Google Meet, like, calls from bed.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was, like, operating in the Google verse, and yeah, and she got a lot of, like, emails, like, to my parents from teachers, like,
She shouldn't be in bed when she's taking her class.
Well, that and, like, she logged on, like a minute or 2, like, late or whatever, and I was like, it was, like, the dark ages. Like, who cares?
Who cares?
You know what I mean? And I think that's one of my, that's a big thing that I think I'm very appreciative of when it comes to collegiate online experience is there was, at least in my experience, there's never been an attempt, or at least in my fully online classes. I've had classes that do like kind of like half and half, that occasionally have like a Zoom call, but 90% of the time, if there's a fully online class, you don't have to talk to anybody.
I noticed, like, with online classes, when it's Zoom, it's so easy to just have a different tab open. Or what I would do, I'm so sorry, Professor, if you're watching this, I would play Animal Crossing. I'd have the controllers in my hand, and I'd have it, like, set up right on top of my keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I was good enough in that class that, like, I could listen.
Yeah, sure.
But I was playing Animal Crossing.
I feel you. I have a class, sort of like one day a week it meets in person, and one day a week it's a Zoom call. There's definitely been times when, you know, I'm trying to, you know, and maybe not like goofing around, but like I'm reviewing for other things or something, because it's like, it's a marketing class that a lot of the content is kind of reviewed in other classes. It's sort of like it definitely feels sort of like retreading.
Is this your Monday, Wednesday, Friday class?
No, interestingly, it's just Monday, Friday.
Okay.
They don't have a Wednesday section. At the beginning of the semester, the professor said, hey, you know, okay, we're going to meet on Monday, Friday, but we'll have some kind of a module on Wednesday. And that has never happened once. And at the it's like, what? It's like week 6 or week 7?
Yeah, I think it's week 6 now.
So, listen, I'm not advocating for the Wednesday module, but like,
not saying
do you know what I mean?
Should add it.
It's difficult to sort of be compelled to be taking rigorous notes or something like that, because like it's more or less like you pay attention. You know, it's a lot of talking about social media marketing and stuff like that. That's one of my minors in. And again, something that is covered pretty extensively in other marketing classes. So so far it's been a lot of kind of like review from other things. So as long as you kind of like, you keep it in your out, and you know, you're looking at the slides he has up and whatever, and then the discussions are on weekends. So there's like a post every week or whatever. And the midterm paper was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've got a midterm coming up.
So I realize that's not totally in the bracket or in the checkbox for online class, but as a sort of semi-asynchronous sort of class, I guess it kind of it dabbles in there.
It's got the parts of it.
There's elements for sure.
Yeah, like that's the type of online class that I would be able to do, but I tried to take accents of the world for a linguistics minor.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
I thought it was required. It's not actually required, so I could have had a minor.
Shame, Ty.
It's fine.
How dare you not?
It's fine. It's not like I'm really interested in it. But I couldn't do it because it was every single week. It was essentially, here's 25 pages. Read it. here's 5-page assignment. Do it. And I'm not a fast reader. Like, I read slow. I don't read very fast. So it was overwhelmingly a lot. And since it was asynchronous, it just didn't exist to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to show up or put in my calendar, so it wasn't real.
No, you know what's funny is I was looking at taking that class next semester because I thought, like, it's like the attributes or whatever the requirements checks off, like, would have saved me from having to take 2 separate classes. I could, like, take this one and get 2 things done, and it's not a single section is being offered. So, asynchronous or no, I'm not taking that class, but I'm kind of glad because I too am not good at reading, and that's honestly, I will kind of concede a little bit, as much as I'm playing devil's advocate. Like, for one of my online classes this semester, a lot of the brunt force work has been just textbook readings, and as you know, as many other MDC majors are going to know, like, a lot of the brunt work in those types of classes is very hands-on, and that's not a typical thing. So I haven't had a lot of classes that have, like, weekly readings like that. So for the first couple weeks, like, that was tough, I will admit. Like, getting used to, okay, I really have to, block out a good amount of time to do these readings, or else it's not going to get done, or else it's going to get done, like, at 11 on the day that it's due.
I pulled up some of the other linguistics classes that are offered. The world languages, I took that online. It was the only class I've successfully done online in college because I took it over the winter session. So it was just one class that I had to do. But Professor Sands does a really good job with it because it's 20 to 30 pages of reading, which definitely got to me some days because that was like every day. But it was essentially 3 weeks long because it was winter session. But then it was also a 20 to 30 minute video. So I would do all the readings because at work I go up on the stand and I look at the pool, and then I go down and I read my schoolwork, and then I go home and I finish the reading, and then I put on the video and I wash my dishes. And honestly, I've never been more on top of my dishes, but that video aspect of it helped me actually get stuff done and kept me moving. So that's a good one to take, the world languages.
One of my online classes, it's Latin American civilization, I think. And it was like, oh, there's no reading this week, but you have to watch this, like, hour-long documentary. And I take, like, not intentionally, but I take incredibly detailed notes to the point where I basically had a script. And I spent, like, it must have been easily, like, 2.5 to 3 hours on just the first 30 minutes. Because I kept pausing to try and get all the details.
I'm the complete opposite. I had to watch like 3 different documentaries in that class. I didn't take notes once. And the first documentary, I, again, was washing dishes, mostly cooking and then washing dishes as I listened to it. And I watched it, set my laptop up on the, my kitchen chair. And then I got to the end of the video and I was like, okay, time to do the assignment. And it's like, you need timestamps for where you got the information from.
No, brother.
So I did have to watch the whole documentary again.
The thing I can't stand sometimes with online classes is...
Here comes your hand. Serious.
Just trying not to, like, tap my ring. Is classes where they'll just be like, oh, go log into McGraw-Hill or whatever, and that's the whole thing. What am I paying for? Like, I'm paying for the textbook, basically? Like, I could go buy the friggin' textbook for however much, or find it on, in a, at a used book sale or something. What do I need to pay? A couple $100 to take the class, or, however much, like, just to be like, oh, I'll go sign up for McGraw-Hill. Like
when you have to teach yourself the material.
Essentially.
I hate
Because then
that. That's my biggest
what's the
problem.
point? What's the point of having a professor there besides facilitating, like, oh, this week you're doing this chapter? Like, okay, thanks, man. Like, thanks for literally nothing.
That's what I struggled with in high school. Is I was like, I don't know chemistry. I can't teach myself chemistry.
Right.
And the same thing with, like, I'd much rather people explain it to me. Mm-hmm. And, like, regarding, like, the linguistics classes where I've tried, succeeded, and failed with online classes, is, like, the first day I emailed Professor Sands and I was like, I struggle with online classes. I will be doing my best, but this is something I'm really interested in. And every once in a while, I like shoot him an email being like, oh my gosh, this, tying into this in my life, blah, blah, blah. And even right now with my in-person linguistics class, I am enjoying it so much more than the online one, because after every class, we learn something. And then I can just walk up to my professor and be like, oh my gosh, this I noticed here and stuff like this. Like Kneecap, the band got brought up because we were talking about Old English and how they used to say Philum, and I was watching Kneecap talk.
I feel like I don't know. There's a lot of classes I feel like sometimes, especially with online classes, I feel like I don't know if don't no one like, quote me on this, but I feel like especially around like lockdown and online schools and stuff like that, like there was especially a lot of things of, you know, information just like retention rates, just like people and granted that could be a litany of other things, I don't know, but I especially felt it in my experience was like that's honestly why like you've seen I have like a million notebooks. Like I take notes physically because it's like without that, like if I take notes on a Word doc or something, it's not it's gonna bounce right off my skull. Honestly.
Yeah, and that's another good point, because like for my online class, I loved that class and I loved everything I learned in that class. But I don't think, even though it was a gen ed class compared to the one I'm taking now, which is like a requirement for a major, not my major, a different major, but it's not a gen ed class. I'm taking it for funsies. And I could not talk to you like as in depth about the topics we learned in my winter session class than I could about the in-person class I'm doing right now. That's like not even halfway done. Mm-hmm. You know, like I did a entire presentation on just language classification from the online class, but the in-person class, I could do a whole presentation on the sound system of English, on besides the phonetics, the phonology of it, and explain the difference between those two terms because they're very similar. Mm-hmm. And like we just go so much more in depth, one because of the topic, but also it's just like part of it's longer. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like being able to engage with the people in my class and being able to engage with the professor on like real time and not over email is just a lot easier for me to like retain things. I did a poll on online classes with the caveat of athletes, women athletes only were the ones polled here. It is not a representative of the entire university.
Well, women athletes from the rugby team.
Athletes specifically from the rugby team.
More or less.
And everyone voted for in-person classes except for one athlete of those who responded. Which, that athlete,
I mean, hey.
I'm seeing a pattern here. She's always the one going against the grain. I love her to death. But yeah, 11-1 for in-person classes. And nobody gave any extra opinions. Sometimes they give their extra opinions, and I'll bring them up. Not this week. They just answered quietly. Westchester University's Biotech and Pharmaceutical Business Club is holding elections for its elective board. There are many open board positions available to apply for, such as president, vice president, director of finance, communication director, career and networking coordinator, web and tech coordinator, community service coordinator, public relations coordinator, and internal affairs and recruitment coordinator. These positions are open to any year level and any major. Applications open on February 19th and close on March 7th. Voting for these positions opens on March 12th and closes on March 21st.
I can't say that makes sense to me. I think because of the I don't know, forget the research terms, but like the sample population, the pool of people who actively enjoy being outside and interacting with other people, like that makes sense.
There's another caveat that I should add. These are also a part of the student population get the first pick for classes. Like they get to select their classes before the general population, because with athletics and the practices, if you're having a championship season or your championship season is in the winter, then you'll get priority scheduling. If your season's in the winter, like swim team or basketball, you get priority scheduling for both the fall and the spring. And if you have a championship season in both the fall and the spring, you get priority scheduling for both. If you have a non-championship season, so like lacrosse has their championship season in the fall, but not in the spring. They get like a second level of it. So the championship season sports get the first pick, along with people through the OEA, the Office for Educational Accessibility.
And marching band, fun fact.
Oh, yeah, marching band. Well, they're basically athletics.
Essentially. I think it's all under the same roof.
They do probably more work than some other. But, championship season and OEA and marching band, and then non-championship season and then general population. So they do get the first pick also. So they don't ever have to settle for online classes.
Gotcha.
Which sometimes I feel like I didn't appreciate the priority scheduling until the class that we were in together. Luke and our other friend, Carrie, were both like, oh my gosh, I didn't get into it. And I was like, what? I can't imagine that happening because I'm so used to getting the priority scheduling so I can schedule around practices.
Of course. Although I do know in some instances, this isn't like an online class specific point, but like advisors in particular, just like not offering office hours or advising sessions in their office because like they've just gone home. And I'm like, I can't entirely blame them. But I'm also a bit like the real ones like, I'm going to give a little shout out right now. Dr. Camillo Diaz-Pino, who, like, every time I show up to his office is like, he's always there. Like, anytime you need him, he's around campus.
No, he's great.
Obviously, like, within his bounds and stuff, but like, there are like
he's not there at 1 a.m.
No, I know. I went and he wasn't there.
I was gonna go to Wayne at 1 a.m.
Dude, I know.
What if I need something urgent?
You see, like, but like my advisor is like, actually, a couple times I've dropped in on my on my advisor once or twice, and he was actually still there. But I know other people's advisors and stuff often are like, and even today I got a message from a MDC friend.
I think we're thinking about the same person.
Who had like their advising session, and just like the professor was either late or didn't show up or something like that.
They told me
and I'm like,
advisor forgot.
Which I'm like, okay, I'm not saying it's because of online enabling, but like if you were in your office and this person had showed up to your office, you would have been like, oh, we can do this now. But if it's just online, if it's amorphous and it's just a Zoom link in your email, like, yeah.
Sometimes also, like, I'm a first-generation college student, so I got here and I was like, there was things that I didn't even know that I didn't know, like how to schedule classes. There was a mentorship program for the athletes that I opted into, and that's the only reason that I was able to schedule my classes and learn how to do that. But, like, sometimes it was really helpful with my advisor to be in the same room so that I can see what he's seeing on his end. And with the switch over to RAM Portal from my WCU, there are two of my classes for my major. I could complain about that. That's a whole can of worms.
That's a whole different episode.
The whole legal problem they got in with me. They didn't change my legal name. Somebody manually changed my preferred name when it was a legal name change notice. How do you mess that up?
Like someone on their staff?
Because the information, like when they were shifting stuff over from my WCU to RAM Portal, sometimes they would manually move the information over and sometimes it would go through automatically. But the fact that the legal name changed the preferred name, which is a completely different, part of this, made me think somebody manually did it and misunderstood, or worst case, purposely did that. But I was like, what if I legally changed my last name? What would that have done?
Yeah, I feel like there's a slight margin for that could have been.
But anyway, that was a whole mess. And two of the classes that I had taken weren't showing up because they were also newer classes. So my advisor fully thought I was a production concentration when I.
Are you not a production concentration?
No, I'm not a production concentration. To which,
I just feel like we've taken enough, similar types of things that I'm like, oh, of course you're a production.
I'm strategic communications.
Damn.
I love my strategic comp. I love when something goes wrong and I have to talk my way out of it. That's my whole thing. I see. Oh, here's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. Public or speaking emphasis classes. There are people that purposely take the online version of public speaking simply so they can record it and send it in and not have to actually do public speaking.
Interesting.
I think that's a horrible class to have online only.
I
Public
feel,
speaking, but you're not speaking in the public. You're speaking in your room by yourself, recording it.
Yeah, that's tough. I could see the appeal for like let's say, for some instances, but I feel like
Like, you're not working on your skills of presenting to an audience.
I feel like if the point is to essentially like get on stage and like sort of like exposure therapy
Like I've talked
that's
to
not
people.
optimal for the intended purposes of the class, like of again kind of exposure therapying you through that anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I mean, have you taken, like, I took it with
I didn't.
with Dr. Myers.
Fun fact about your class and COVID in my class is my class only had to take 6 credits of of speaking emphasis classes because of COVID interrupting the curriculum. And starting with your grade, it
okay.
went back to the 9 credits required. Of course, I
Man.
think I ended up with 9 credits of speaking emphasis anyway because I'm a strategic comm major. And I'm not afraid of speaking emphasis classes. Like, it's absolutely scary to stand up in front of a bunch of people, which is why I think it's so important to take that class in person to actually stand up in front of people.
Yeah.
Because you can practice memorizing all the information, how to say things. You can, learn that you're supposed to look around the crowd and at the different people around you. But then you get in front of all these real life people that are looking at you, and like you can just freeze.
Yeah.
So some of the best things you can do is just do it a million times, because then it's nothing. It's just whatever.
I remember taking public speaking, and one of my presentations, like, I was intentionally trying to, because I knew that I would talk way over time. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to talk, like, as quickly as possible. Like, not being, like, indistinguishable, or, you know what I mean? But, like, as quickly as I possibly could, trying to do any fluff. But it was about a topic that I was really passionate about. And so by the end of it, not only was I not talking fast anymore, I was getting into all the weeds and the fluff and stuff like that. And I eventually Dr. Myers, who I took the class with, had this policy of at a certain threshold, like not when you're done, but when you got close to being done, when you had 30 seconds left or something like that, she would raise her hand in the back of the audience, and you'd kind of whatever. And I just remember seeing that, and my blood ran cold, and I had 3 slides left, and I clicked through and made main points, and I was out. And I was that's the kind of thing I feel like you're talking about. You can't know that you're gonna react that way.
I talk about being strat comm and taking in all these speaking emphasis classes.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, this is just basic information everybody's learning in college. And then I was doing a leadership thing for the sports teams, and we did presentations at the end of it. And I was like, oh, they're doing all these little things that my professors have hammered out of me at this point. That I'm it made me realize, okay, I'm surrounded by people that are in a communication major. These are all people, the majority of them were nursing or biotechnical engineering, these very tough, hard majors, and incredibly smart athletes and students. And I was just whoa, these are just little habits that have been beaten out of me. And so I imagine it's the same for those really complicated major, where it's this is their everyday. It's probably nothing to them.
Yeah, I wonder if it's I wonder if our perspectives are a little bit different, because it's partially how your brain works, and also just the major, the necessity that is, take for instance the class we took together last semester, where we were setting up cameras and lighting kits and all kinds of things. It's that's a physical thing, especially with lighting and stuff. You're not gonna be able to see how that interacts in an environment.
And then trying to work the lav mics. Somebody could show me a video on how to set up the lav mic.
I still don't fully know how those work.
I had somebody prior to this class, I wanted to use the lav mic for something, and I was just hey man, you're good at cameras. Walk me through this. And even with someone walking me through step by step, I would mess it up.
Right. But it's okay, so that's obviously our perspective is very much this is almost a crucial element. But I wonder bio majors out there, sound off, can you guys just do biochemistry, like, I don't know, on Word or whatever, like, however it is, like, do you guys feel like that's necessary? I don't know. Because I would imagine that to some degree there is a similar thing of what we were talking about earlier, where it's like the like learning experience is different. But at the end of the day, like, are you guys good? Like, can you guys just like make that work? Like,
we could ask Aiden that, our friend who's a earth science
No,
major.
but then also, like, isn't...
But he's an earth science major.
So
how can you...
He works with, like, rocks. He has field trips where he just goes and, like, pans for rocks and rivers.
I used to be earth science. There was a whole field class where we went to the Catskills in New York. So...
Yeah, I think one time Aiden got, like... We saw him get dropped off. Yeah. Like, out of a van.
Yeah, the sketchy vans that the professor drives.
With just, like, still, like, in, like, muddy boots and stuff, like, straight, like, he had just, like, walked out of a river.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so, that's another good thing.
Somebody
of, like,
always
how do you
falls
do...
in the river.
But then again, if you have your, like, astrophysics or your biochem or whatever, like... Can you guys just, like, chill at home? Like, I don't know.
Comment on the video if you're a bio major and let us know how online classes work for you. If you're a biomechanical engineering major, I know there's at least one at the university.
There's at least one?
There's at least one. I know one. How are you supposed to lick the rock on online classes? That's an essential part of identifying if it's a sedimentary rock.
Are you tasting like the salts and minerals in it and stuff? Is that a thing that people like actually do?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
I have not privy to this information.
Former earth science major for one whole semester.
No, but this is genuinely the question that I'm interested in now. Is like, again, I've been playing devil's advocate, but I genuinely want to know: is there any like major, or is there any like kind of group of people who, not just like me, where I can see the argument for it, and it's, in some cases has been neutral to positive or whatever, but somebody who like actually can kind of like thrive on it and like, or maybe not if they can, but like overall the experience is like demonstrably better. And the only situation I could possibly think of is maybe like coding, like computer science, because you're like, that is the whole thing. Like, it's like, you're not really going to be doing, like, there's not a whole lot of anything that would happen.
Maybe writing majors too.
I feel like they would, because solely at Westchester, because Main Hall is warm. And that's where they tend to be. No hate to English majors. I love y'all. And arts and humanities in general, but Main Hall is so warm. It is so warm.
So warm, and it's built to be the worst ever, so that we can't have a student protest at Main Hall. It's built specifically to prevent any student protests, because it was built in the 60s when student protests were very popular, and Westchester didn't want student protests, so they built Main Hall like that.
How?
Also, the temperature is not based on the outside temperature. It's based on, we think on February 27th, this is going to be the temperature outside. So based on what we think is going to happen, we're going to set the inside temperature like that. So it's by date.
Oh, so it's set in like advance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's awful.
I imagine they would be the type of people, not just because Maine is warm, but because like when the weather gets nicer and people start like sitting on the quad, and Maine's right there.
Yeah.
I feel like, you should be on the quad or like in Saxby's or something. Get out of Maine. Like okay, there's
escape.
Well, then actually no, I think I can flip this into an argument for online class, because if you're not bound by any physical space, then the world becomes your classroom. You can go anywhere as long as you have internet.
I'm really hoping that I'm not going to be assigned anything over spring break. Some of my teammates that are going to Italy with me are like, I have all these due dates that are halfway through spring break, and it's going to suck because we're going to be in a different time zone, and they're going to have to do schoolwork while they're in a different country.
That's tough.
So, speaking of Italian, my in-person Italian class, I don't think I could do that asynchronous.
Oh, yeah.
I do not
like
think.
Languages? Like,
I did,
oh my God.
for my Chinese class, I went onto the online section rather than the in-person, just because it fit better with my rugby schedule. And there was 3 of us in the online section. One was a non-degree student, and one was a student from a different university that did not offer Mandarin Chinese. And, the biggest pitfall with that is sometimes they wouldn't show up. If that was asynchronous, I would have learned nothing.
I was gonna say,
But
I
the
feel
fact
like
that we still spoke.
the whole thing with languages is like you need immersion. Like that's the way that your brain figures it out. Is like, I guess
That's why
you
I'm going
could-
to Italy.
you could stretch it. You could stretch it all the way back to like, if you're learning, you're developing like language as
It's a wee baby.
as an infant, wee baby.
Targeted.
You're basically it's basically trial by fire, and it's like you have to figure it out. So your brain, if you're learning any other language later in life, is like, oh, well, you need to be like dunked in the language essentially.
Yeah.
And again, to your point, like going to the place is a big help. But if you're like
Sometimes
sitting online, if I'm trying to learn Mandarin, and especially because as what you've told me about Mandarin and inflection being very important, like even going
Tonal
even
languages.
like even kind of excluding like collegiate like based sort of stuff, if you're talking about like Duolingo, and it's like, oh well, the voice act, if and I don't know, I've never taken Mandarin on Duolingo, but I'm imagining like what if either your pronunciation is a little bit off and then it means it's not correct, or if the voice actors aren't correct, you're just like in a world of hurt. Like especially if you learn a bunch of stuff and then you go to the place and then you're like, well,
Chinese people are so accepting to those learning their language, which is the best part about learning Chinese, is I could say a very rough sentence, even after studying it for 5 years, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you did so well, because they're just so encouraging and so nice. I've got 2 things to say about Duolingo Chinese. One, it translates things wrong. In English, this weekend I will run. In Chinese, it's this weekend I run. Because Germanic languages don't have a future tense. We have past, we have present. We have I run, I ran, I will run. Run and run don't change. We add a word. And so Duolingo will have me say, wo hui pao bu instead of wo pao bu. Which, if you say, like, 这个周末, this weekend, it's future tense. That's what makes it future tense. Adding hui just makes it wrong. And Duolingo is wrong. And also, Duolingo was good in the sense of the voice actor for Duolingo is from South China and has a South Chinese accent. And my high school professor was from very North China. My high school teacher. I'm sure she could be qualified, I don't know, but she was my teacher.
Yeah.
The habits. Like, she was from, like, almost as north as you could get in China.
Mhm.
And the professor here is from South China. So Duolingo, I listened to the Duolingo the summer before I started studying here, and I couldn't understand it right away because of the super southern accent, to which ended up helping me because the professor here has a southern Chinese accent.
Yeah.
Her accent is so different than my high school teacher's. One problem, again, using Duolingo, and its many failures as an example, if you try to learn Irish on Duolingo, the different dialects of Irish, which are very unique to each other because of the isolation of the Gaeltachts of where they're spoken, that Duolingo just takes all of the different dialects and throws them in there. And so it's hard to be consistent. It's not consistent because it changes between the dialects.
Well, even the governmental standardized Irish is never really spoken. So it's just sort of like right when Ireland got united, the Brits came and tore that all up. So you never really had there's never going to be a united dialect because obviously like every country has their regional dialects.
The
but
older
like
an area
they're
is,
pretty
the more.
they're pretty fractured. Not pretty fractured, but like they have their differences. So yes, just to I say all this to say to further, I guess, exemplify that Duolingo has its issues. Although as a marketing phenomenon is fascinating.
Yeah, marketing is wonderful. The only reason I haven't stopped is because I don't want to lose my streak.
I need to restart. I'm not
the
with
Irish, right, is online. You have like this system that is a very popular way to be learning a language like Irish, and it's inconsistent with the dialects. First, like, I understand that the governmental one isn't really actually spoken, but it's a lot easier to learn a consistent dialect like that than it is all of them at once. Yeah,
I feel like it's kind of like you're gonna learn.
And in person, you'll have a teacher who's going to stick with one dialect.
Yeah, or at least if you're
somebody
in.
get DJ Provy to teach a lesson at Westchester University. He's an Irish
Oh my
language
God,
teacher.
Dr. DJ Provy.
Dr. DJ Provy.
Oh my God, he's so fun.
That's what they call him.
He's so cool. He just wears the balaclava at like 2 classes.
Yeah, they might make him retire again.
That's why they have like I don't know if you're aware of this, but like they have like almost like summer camps or something, where like
the language immersion camps.
Kids get sent to like essentially like the Aran Islands for like a summer, and they like all the adults only use Irish, like everybody there is exclusively just to immerse your brain enough to like really grab onto it.
Do you know where those came from?
What?
I believe they came from New Zealand in trying to grow their native language there as they did these camps. It was language immersion camps, and they showed immense success, and they do them for a lot of indigenous languages of the Americas, a lot of the indigenous language, like the Aboriginal languages of Australia, which are in similar risks of extinction, and that's a very successful like language revitalization source. We had like one of the documentaries was just on that I did in my class. It was wonderful, and these language immersion when the kids are at a young age are so important to help learn the language and get that. And then in the Aboriginal language areas, the kids, because it's so rural, like you could drive 3 hours and not see somebody in some areas, so all the kids will go to a boarding school so that they can all get that standardized education, and it would be too hard for them to go back and forth. Maybe online classes would help them, that they would be able to stay with their families instead of having to be shipped off for the whole year to go to a boarding school.
Yeah, you know, honestly.
But that creates really cool, like there's this Creole language that has popped up in some of those schools where these kids from various different linguistic backgrounds start talking to each other, and they create a Creole language that has its own unique grammar that isn't found in the languages that it derives from.
We're still talking New Zealand now.
Oh, this is Aboriginal. This is Australia.
Oh, okay.
New Zealand, I believe, I don't really know the linguistic diversity of New Zealand besides Rapa Nui, I think it's called, is the Maori language, and then English, which is spoken by the white people that moved there. We've had a pretty good conversation talking about in-person versus online classes, and we've got to wrap it up there. Comment and like the video, share it around. Let us know who had better points, who had better argument, and what you think of if you agree with, you know, in-person classes or online classes being more beneficial, less beneficial, the pros, the cons. Let us know in the comments, and hope you enjoyed this episode of Bleat This with our special guest, Connor Lydon.
Thank you for having me.